Leslie Kwakye, to tell me a little bit about your dual career search. So tell me, were you guys on the job search at the same time?
Yes, we were. Yeah.
Okay, so how did that go? How did it transpire?
So we actually had a year left as like in visiting positions, and so we kind of figured it would take us a couple of tries to find something, especially for the both of us. And so we started the first time sort of not as enthusiastic that we would find something, but we figured we should give it a go. And it was really lucky that we did, because that year there was like 5 or 6 different institutions that had 2 positions in neuroscience that like fit. One of them fit me, and then one of them fit Gunnar. And so we actually got really lucky the first time around. We didn't have to apply again.
Okay.
And so we got 2 offers together at 2 different places. So one was at Middlebury College, one was at Hendrix College. And then when we got those offers, Oberlin, which is where we were as visitors, made a counteroffer to keep us. And so we actually like had some like choices to make. But yeah, we were lucky that neuroscience was expanding at liberal arts schools when we were looking. And so they had lots of positions to offer.
That's great. And when you were in the process, at any point did you tell the people that you were interviewing with that you were doing a dual career search? Like, did you talk about your spouse at any point?
No, I didn't. Because often you want to wait until you have the offer, and then you can then pitch it to them that, okay, my wife is also in the job market, or my partner is, and so I would advise not to talk about it until you have the offer in writing before you go ahead to do that.
Yeah, because it can sway either good or bad. Sometimes it can be good if they want someone else, but it can also be bad if they think, well, why are we wasting our time with this person when we don't have the money to hire a second person? And then sometimes they'll still find ways of accommodating 2 people. And so it's definitely best if one person gets an offer to like hold back, and then once you have the offer, to start negotiating for the other person.
Okay.
And also, as I would say, when we went on the job market, we had to think very broadly in terms of our training. Although we train as neuroscientists, but we had to think about the earlier training in terms of, for instance, I went through IGP, so I learned a lot about biochemistry and physiology and all that. So there were jobs in animal physiology that I applied for and got offered for that job. And I'm not trained as an animal physiologist, but I felt that the training that Vanderbilt through the IGP program gave me in terms of understanding physiology or biochemistry was enough for me to be able, and also to help me to be competitive for that job. So I would say it's good to be willing to expand, cast your net widely, and not just focus on a specific technique. And we did the same.
So you guys were on the first year of your jobs at the same time, right?
That's right.
So how did that go?
I mean, it was good. It was because
good,
you have somebody who understands what you're going through. And that's like like you kind of come with your own built-in support. Which is also really nice.
I agree.
Okay, so tell us about some of the strategies that you guys use together for just sort of managing your work-life balance, and like how you do it together as both in similar fields.
It's a very good question. We're still working on that. But I'd say we try to set up, or we work, as I said, so what we do is we have like date nights. So the goal is we're going to work hard, and then Friday we have a date night, and we're going to go out and celebrate. If it's one of us has a paper accepted, we go out and celebrate. If it's writing the introduction of a paper and you're done a draft, we celebrate. And most of the time we talk to each other and we say, okay, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Do you think this is feasible? Does this make sense in terms of applying, for instance, an R15 grant? Or do you think I'm thinking about using the strategy in my lab? Do you think it's feasible? And it's like, oh, I tried it last year, it didn't work. And so we learn from each other, which is good. And as Leslie mentioned, the built-in support system is very important, especially if you want to be at a small institution like Oberlin or other liberal arts institution, where you can be the only one who is an expert in, for instance, sensory neuroscience, or in my case, neurotoxicology. You need somebody who you can talk to, somebody who understands you, and somebody who will keep basically encouraging you that you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And I think as long as your spouse or your partner is willing to do that, it's a bonus.
Okay. What are some of the traits that you would talk about the other having that really helps it work out for the two of you to do this sort of dual career?
I think for Gunnar, he's always like unendingly positive, and he's probably like the most encouraging, supportive person ever. And so like it wasn't as much a case, now, but definitely during grad school there were times where like get discouraged, and then Gunnar's like, you can't give up. You'll do it, just keep going. And like that always really helps, like he's always like more positive about things than I am sometimes. So.
Thank you.
Good. And what about Leslie?
Yeah, with Leslie, I'll say Leslie is very big into thinking about life, not just in the lab. And so, like a time when, and there's several times she'll remind me, let's take a step back. You don't have to be in the lab 12 hours or 14 hours. So the work-life balance, I think Leslie is the big push. And that has really helped, because if it hadn't been here, I would be in the lab for over 12, 14 hours and I would just be zoning into trying to understand the scientific question and completely forget about what is happening in my environment. So she really brings out that part that I think we need as scientists and as a couple to make sure your relationship is working and you're happy. You need that system, and Leslie is wonderful. She does a fantastic job with that. Yeah.
Good. Well, what advice would you give current graduate students or postdocs who are together about to start that dual career search?
I mean, it's scary, as a grad student thinking about it, but then I guess also I just didn't think about it too much. Like I didn't try, or not worrying about it too much. And there are multiple ways to get, to like a married couple to, be able to prioritize both their careers and their relationship. So one big advice I would give for women in particular is when you're finding a partner, find someone who supports your career, because I think that can make or break. Having an academic couple in a career is often times when one person's career gets deprioritized, because of the relationship. And I think it's really important to make sure that you find someone who's committed to your career just as much as they are to theirs. I think that's like the most important thing, actually. And then beyond that, I think just work lots of different angles, because even if we didn't end up at the same place, we could have ended up at a nearby, one of us at a nearby institution, or like a lot of people at our institution, one of the people will get a job, and then the other person might be visiting for a while, so like a non-permanent job, but then they find a way of getting a permanent job for the other person. So that's a more common path where we are, and it works out for a lot of people.
Gotcha.
So like there are ways, and we can find an institution like that. So a lot of the liberal arts schools, since they're in the middle of nowhere, are really supportive of couples and academic couples. And so if you find an institution like that, you're going to help your chances much better than institutions who don't care.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's very good. And I'd like to add to it by saying that I think couples should start thinking about adapting their research training to different institution requirement. And so, for instance, if there's a couple and there's a position in psychology and you're trained as a neuroscientist, you have to think broadly and say, okay, how can my research actually apply to psychology? And how can I make myself competitive for that position? And maybe once you get that offer, you have to always think about your partner. It's not just about you, it's a teamwork. And so when you're getting the offer, you have to think about what strategy. How am I going to talk to the provost or the dean about my wife or my husband? When am I going to do this? And negotiating not just for yourself, but also for your spouse. Because at the long run, if your spouse is not happy at home, it's not going to be happy home. So I would say that those are the things to think about when they're going on the job market and hoping to stay happy together, and also perseverance. You definitely don't want to give up after the first trial. We were just lucky, and we're willing to go back again and try several times. So perseverance and keeping in touch with mentors, because we still have mentors here. Aaron Bowman, Mark Wallace, who is like my adopted mentor, but we still talk to them, and seeing where they are going inspires us to keep going. Like, we can do it. It's just a matter of time. We might have some hurdles, but we're having all these strong, intelligent scientists behind us. We cannot fail. We just got to keep going. Hard work and luck, and hopefully a door will open for you. So I'd say don't give up when you don't get a position. Just think about it in a positive sense, that you learn something new from the experience, and also maybe it will give you a better sense of structuring your application. And always asking for feedback on application is helpful, because it could be that you're missing the point. The whole, maybe you're applying to liberal arts and you're talking about applying for postdocs and arrow ones. So seeking feedback, it's very helpful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm here with Michelle Mazei-Robison and AJ Robison. I'm so glad that y'all could be together. I want to ask you about your dual career search. Tell us, were you guys both looking for a job at the same time?
Yes, so we were, even though, and there was kind of, we decided to do that way, although like a lot of these things, it probably wasn't perfectly optimal, just because AJ actually had to shift postdoc, so his project was not quite at the same stage mine was, so it was probably a little bit early for him, but on the advice of our mentor, basically, my kind of big paper was coming out. He said it's good to go for it, and you guys should just go out there and see what happens, because you never kind of know what offers are going to be available, and it never hurts to get out there a little bit early. So we ended up both going on the job market at the same time, even though theoretically maybe we could have waited a little bit, and it ended up working out. So,
did you guys stick to a certain geographic area, or what was the strategy when you were applying?
Yeah, we did not stick to a certain geographic area. I think we sent out 35 job applications or something close to that.
yeah, I think it was around 30, and we were
30, yeah.
very, because we knew that we were looking for two kind of tenure track style positions, we figured we'd be as open as possible, and if there seemed like any possibility at all that we would go there, we just went for it. So we were very flexible in that way.
In the end, our two real possibilities, though, wound up being both Midwestern schools. It was Michigan State and Iowa.
Okay, so how did your preferences and priorities, each other's, like how did that mesh? How did you work it out?
We were pretty lucky in that we have pretty similar priorities as far as the kinds of schools we were most interested in, and our research programs are very similar, so our needs were pretty similar. So something that wouldn't work for one of us probably wasn't going to work for either of us. So
Gotcha.
that made things a little bit easier. And we both do a lot of different things in our labs, so we could fit into a lot of different kinds of departments. We wound up being in a physiology department, but we had interviews in pharmacology and psychiatry departments as well as others. So we were flexible about that as well.
So did you tell your employer as you're applying that you had a spouse? Like, was that something that you were revealing?
So basically, we had asked around kind of people's advice, and what's key about that is not everyone gives you the same advice, so we got, kind of different forms of advice, but what we ended up doing was basically sending out our letters, our applications completely independently, not mentioning anything about a spouse, and some schools we both sent letters to, some just one of us applied. It kind of depended on what exactly the ad was looking for. But then once we were asked and were there at the interview, we made it a point to say, while we were there at the interview, I have a spouse, they're also a scientist, this is what they do, so that they were aware, because we know, one, we knew at that point that they were at least seriously interested in this, and also it gave them some time, because we know, it takes a lot of time to figure out, if you can make another position or not, to bring the other person in. So we did want to give them as much time as possible while hopefully keeping open as many possibilities.
Now that we're on the other side, and we both perform a lot of faculty searches for new assistant professors and are involved in these processes, I think that was probably the right way to go about it, to give us the best chance of getting a job too. It's important to get your foot in the door and get an interview, but then after that, honesty is really the best policy and can get you the most you can get out of the situation for both yourself and your partner.
Right. What was the hardest part, though, about the career search together?
I think it's just the whole process. I think for even one position, right, it's just kind of a very strange process, because it's very open-ended, and so you kind of send applications out, and every school is kind of on their own timeline, so you don't really hear things in a normal prescribed way, so you kind of just sit and wait a lot, and then you hear something, and then you wait again. And so I think, we actually had pretty decent experiences once we went places and told them. For the most part, most places at least considered, brought out the other person, had them come and give a talk, so it would at least seemed like a possibility. So it didn't seem as discouraging in that way that I might have guessed. I mean, So I think it's just the waiting and just not knowing, like, is this all going to work out, or, is someone going to have to sacrifice a lot? How is it going to go? The unknown, just not knowing.
I felt the same way. I thought our search it wasn't really that bad. I think we had some luck, and then also we were in a nice position where we weren't being pressured that both of us had to be out of the lab in the next 6 months, or there's no funding, or we weren't in that kind of a situation. So I think we felt less pressure, and that probably made us better interviews for not being nervous or really as worried. So I thought it was really I think we were pretty lucky and had a pretty good process.
So now that you are both faculty, what are some of the ways that you sort of balance your life together? Some of the strategies for time management or kind of handling life in your roles.
Yeah.
We our offices are 2 doors down from each other, and our labs are across the hall from each other. So we're together a lot.
You
during
like
the
each
day.
other.
We like each other very much. We have our relationship. We have an easy work relationship. We don't really fight or argue. It makes it really easy to work together. We're good collaborators. And then we talk science pretty much all day, and then we go home at night and I whisper sweet experiments into her ear. I mean, we talk science all night at home too. So we're very, we're pretty science oriented. But on the flip side, we have 2 beautiful children, and we do a lot of fun things together on the family side as well. But we both have the same science interests, and we both have the same kind of attitude. So it just makes it really easy to work together.
Yeah, but I think as far as balancing, I think, it is a struggle, right? But I think we're lucky in the sense that, we're very kind of equal partners in that, so that helps a lot. And so we also understand kind of how the science schedule works that's not necessarily typical. So there are some weeks where, he'll have more commitments, needs to go to dinners and things, and I'll say, okay, I'll take over that aspect. And so we know that we kind of understand how these things work, and they go in phases and can make those things happen too.
When her grants are due, I pick up the kids more often than she does. And when I've got, some committees I have to deal with, and she makes more meals than I do. It's nice because we can totally relate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.